I still remember the fluorescent glare in the conference room, reflecting off the polished table. I'd been at M&M Logistics for 11 loyal years. I was proud of my record, countless late nights, countless improvements, and a system that had saved the company millions. But that day, everything changed. The new CEO, Bradley West, sat at the head of the table, beaming with pride. Right beside him was his son, Brett, who kept smirking like he'd already won something. On the other side, my manager Jordan refused to make eye contact. Finally, Bradley cleared his throat and announced, "We're restructuring the department for a more modern approach." I felt my stomach drop. My role was reimagined. In other words, they fired me in front of everyone. Brett leaned forward, lips twisted into a smug grin, and introduced his college buddy Mason, who was apparently taking the reins of my position. My heart pounded with embarrassment and fury, but I forced my face to stay neutral. Jordan handed me a manila folder with termination paperwork, eyes full of forced pity. Before I left, I locked eyes with Brett. He looked at me as if I was already forgotten. But I wasn't shocked. I'd seen the writing on the wall weeks ago. I thought about the routing algorithm I'd finished coding last night. They assumed it was theirs, but everything was about to change. 2 weeks before that humiliating meeting, I received a Slack notification I shouldn't have. It popped up on my phone at midnight, just as I was closing my laptop. At first, I thought it was a glitch. Then I read it. Brett's name was on the thread, along with Jordan's. They were discussing me, calling my work old-fashioned and mocking my outdated mindset. I could almost hear them laughing as they typed. The conversation ended with, "Let's modernize the team with younger, faster energy." My cheeks burned with rage. I scrolled back up, scanning line after line of insults. One message actually read, "As soon as she wraps up that new code, we can bring in Mason. She's too stuck in the past." So they'd planned my replacement well before I even delivered my final project. I wanted to lash out right then, but I stopped myself. Instead, I calmly exported my code from my personal GitHub repo. I watermarked every single line with a hidden signature, something invisible to the naked eye, but undeniable in court. They had no idea I'd protected my work. My phone buzzed. A reminder from my calendar read, "Schedule coffee with recruiter." I smirked. Time to move. I built that routing algorithm piece by piece over 2 years. By day, I handled my normal load. By night, I fine-tuned the machine learning model. It optimized freight routes and cut operational errors by a huge margin. Something that saved M&M close to $4 million a year. Nobody else had that level of specialized knowledge because nobody else poured heart and soul into it like I did. I did it mostly on my personal laptop, at home, often sacrificing weekends. The company had no clue how deeply I understood every layer, from the data cleaning scripts to the predictive logic. My code used advanced pattern recognition to spot inefficiencies and adjust routes in real time. For trucking companies, that meant less wasted fuel, fewer delays, happier clients. Before everything went south, I demonstrated an early prototype. Jordan had clapped me on the back, promising a bonus if I kept innovating. I believed him, but after reading that Slack thread, I realized I was just free labor for them. I decided right then I was taking my masterpiece with me. As much as I wanted to cling to loyalty, I owed them nothing. Later that night, I met a recruiter for dinner. She leaned across the table and whispered, "Have you heard of Allurex Systems? I heard about Mason's first day from my friend Sasha, one of the engineers on my old team. She sent me a text at 9 a.m. He's wearing flip-flops, and he just asked what a staging environment is." Mason had no clue about the intricacies of the system. He didn't even understand half of the documentation I'd left behind. Then it got worse. Mason apparently decided to clean up the codebase. He thought some directories were duplicates, so he deleted them. But those directories weren't duplicates. They contained core modules. Suddenly, entire segments of the routing logic vanished. By lunchtime, the freight tracking dashboard was showing error messages everywhere. Jordan tried to cover for Mason, saying it was just a temporary hiccup. But the panic in the office was real. Their brand new manager had basically set the system on fire. Sasha's next text buzzed my phone just as I was leaving a coffee shop. "OMG, Mason wiped the logistics file. They're freaking out. Everyone's blaming him." I nearly laughed out loud on the sidewalk. My heart raced with a strange mix of satisfaction and sadness. I hated to see my old teammates suffer. I closed my eyes and wondered, how bad would this meltdown get? The meltdown got very bad very fast. By midweek, M&M's dashboard for live freight updates was crashing multiple times a day. One morning, the entire system went down during a critical vendor presentation. The East Coast client, one of M&M's largest, watched in disbelief as rates flickered from 0 to triple the normal cost in real time. Sasha told me the conference room turned into chaos. Frantic calls to IT, Mason sweating through his shirt, Brett pacing behind him whispering, "Fix this now." But there was no easy fix, because the backup code Mason had deleted was essential to the system's reliability. As a result of this failure, M&M lost that East Coast client's confidence. A rumor spread that the client was canceling their new contract negotiations altogether. The financial impact could be huge. But the biggest surprise? Later that evening, my phone rang. I didn't recognize the number, so I let it go to voicemail. Then I listened. "Hi, Jennifer Carter. We're from the East Coast Freight Alliance. We'd like to speak with you about an opportunity to consult on." I nearly dropped my phone. They weren't calling M&M. They were calling me. I hit call back. I wondered what M&M would do if they found out. I agreed to meet Devin Lin, CTO of Allurex Systems, at a ramen spot downtown. We took a table in the corner, near a neon sign that buzzed softly. Steam rose from our bowls as we talked. Devin leaned in. "We've heard rumors about your algorithm. Word is, you built the backbone of M&M's freight routing. That true?" I nodded, careful with my words. "Mostly, but I own the core code." We sipped our mocktails and my heart pounded from more than just the chili spice. Allurex was a rising star in the logistics tech world, known for shaking up the old guard. If they had my system, well, that could change everything. I slid a small flash drive across the table. "It's a sample, enough to show what it can do." Devin's eyes lit up. "This is exactly what we need to expand our real-time routing capabilities. How fast can you scale it with a proper team?" My mind spun with excitement. I pictured a real development squad, budget, respect. I took a deep breath. "Give me a few top-tier engineers, a solid QA process, and a clear runway. I'll get you results in weeks." Devin grinned. "Sounds like we're in business. Let's talk details." I went home that night with my mind racing. My excitement was tempered by one nagging worry. M&M's employment contract. I remembered a clause about intellectual property. So I fished out the battered file I kept in my desk drawer and flipped through the pages. Clause 14B jumped out. "All intellectual property created on company time with company equipment belongs to M&M Logistics." The words burned my eyes. Anxiety flickered through my stomach. Did they have a claim to my code? I dug deeper, checking timestamps, reading the fine print, verifying emails. Every major breakthrough in my code was done at home, using my personal laptop. My push logs showed I was working after 7 p.m., sometimes at midnight. The IP address was always from my house. I took screenshots, compiled evidence, organized everything. If M&M tried to argue otherwise, I had the proof to fight back. I sent the entire folder to Allurex's legal team that same night. In my message, I wrote, "Please confirm we're clear." An hour later, Devin texted me directly. "You're bulletproof, Jen. We'll handle the rest." I wondered if M&M would discover my plan before I could finalize my exit. Word about my departure spread quickly inside M&M. Engineers I'd mentored started sending me private messages, wanting to know where I was headed next. They were drowning under Mason's leadership. 3 key engineers quit within a single month, citing management conflicts. 2 more reached out. "We want to follow you, if you'll have us." I felt a twinge of guilt. They were my teammates, people I cared about. But I couldn't just hand them jobs without checking with Allurex. So I talked to Devin, who lit up. "We need experienced engineers. Send them my way." That very night, I drafted emails to each of them with subject lines like, "New Horizon?" I invited them to chat, offering a hint at Allurex's vision. Their enthusiasm fueled me. But I also felt a growing sense of responsibility. If they joined me, that meant doubling down on leaving M&M behind for good. Still, I couldn't ignore their despair. Mason had no clue how to lead, and Brett seemed more interested in boosting his own image than supporting the team. So we became a small ghost team, quietly planning our futures while M&M's ship was sinking. One of my ex-coworkers texted, Brace yourself. Big changes in the top office. Late one night, M&M's founder, Carla Martinez, received a dismal report. 2 major vendor accounts were threatening to sue for contract delays. Financial damage, brand damage, everything was piling up. According to Sasha, Carla was livid. She called an emergency meeting with the board, but excluded Brett and Jordan. Inside M&M's pristine glass tower, tension filled the corridors. Jordan scurried around, trying to do damage control. Brett locked himself in his father's office. Mason sulked by the water cooler, apparently clueless about the scale of the problem. Meanwhile, Carla's confidential meeting dug into the root cause. The broken system, the lack of documentation, the exodus of talent. Questions started swirling. How did we let this happen? Who greenlit Mason's position? Where is Jenn Carter now? Word of my name being mentioned in hushed tones made me grin. Maybe they finally realized how valuable I'd been. I felt a sharp jolt of both vindication and sadness. I had poured over a decade into that company. Now they were paying the price for nepotism and petty power plays. That night, I posted a cryptic LinkedIn status. Documentation is power. Within minutes, I saw Carla had viewed my profile. Out of nowhere, an old blog post I'd written years ago started gaining traction online. It was a piece about workplace equity in tech, highlighting how experienced professionals can drive innovation if given the right support. I'd almost forgotten I wrote it, but someone recognized my name and shared it on LinkedIn. Comments poured in. Jenn Carter was the brain behind M&M's freight routing, and I had no idea she developed that system. It spread like wildfire. A logistics VP reposted it, adding, "We must value talent at every level." Within days, the post had hundreds of likes. Former co-workers chimed in with compliments I never heard when I was inside M&M. Strangers thanked me for championing fair treatment in tech. I felt both overwhelmed and relieved. Finally, my voice was being heard in a bigger arena. Then came the big announcement. Allurex officially hired me as Director of Intelligent Systems, along with the talented engineers who'd followed. When the news hit, my phone nearly exploded with messages. Many were congratulations, but a few were suspiciously from unknown numbers, likely M&M employees fishing for info. A single text from my attorney read, "We have your back. Let's push forward." After Allurex's official hire announcement, the industry chatter exploded. People were talking about Jenn Carter's next big move and how our new ML-based routing system could shake up freight logistics. Investors began questioning M&M, demanding answers about why they'd let me go. Brett tried to brush it off, calling it a nothing burger in an internal email. I laughed when Sasha forwarded me that email. A nothing burger? Really? Because from where I stood, Allurex was suddenly in talks with multiple M&M clients interested in a better solution. We set up demos for these prospective partners, showcasing advanced features my old code never had time to fully implement at M&M. During my first official Allurex demo, 3 of M&M's major clients came with open checkbooks. They saw real-time analytics, user-friendly dashboards, and integrated compliance checks. I watched their faces light up, and I knew we'd just opened the floodgates. Once M&M's customers realized how limited the old system was, there'd be no going back. After the meeting, Devin shook my hand. "We're about to change the game. Ready for the next step?" I nodded, adrenaline surging. M&M panicked. They released a statement claiming they were enhancing their technology under new leadership, promising clients that improvements were underway. But behind the scenes, Mason and his team were in shambles. Without proper documentation or training, every enhancement they tried to make created new bugs. Word leaked that entire sections of code had been orphaned because Mason trashed them. Engineers inside M&M were quitting faster than HR could replace them, citing burnout and poor guidance. An anonymous post on an industry forum read, "The system is basically broken. Leadership is clueless." Meanwhile, Allurex's phone didn't stop ringing. More companies requested demos. We juggled meeting after meeting, preparing to scale. A few times, I caught myself feeling a pang of guilt for how quickly M&M was sinking. But then I remembered the Slack thread that called me outdated, the smirk on Brett's face, and the gaping hole they left in my heart after firing me in public. I uploaded my original white paper, fully time-stamped and credited, to a private repository accessible to a few IP lawyers. My message was clear. I owned this work, And I could prove it. We decided to officially rebrand my code under AllureX. After a few brainstorming sessions, the name PulseFlow stuck. It felt fresh, modern, and perfectly captured the real-time nature of our tool. The team designed a sleek teaser video showing live demos of PulseFlow analyzing routes, minimizing idle time, and boosting efficiency by double digits. When we launched the teaser, the logistics industry practically leaned forward in their chairs. I got messages from old college friends, random acquaintances, even a few reporters asking how we built something so powerful so quickly. I just smiled. The secret was years of my work, plus a talented group of engineers who finally had the support they needed. M&M's response? A desperate attempt to downplay it. They posted some half-baked press release claiming that their own system would be just as competitive. But behind the scenes, my sources told me Brett was furious. He demanded a full legal investigation into PulseFlow, apparently convinced I stole his property. Then one afternoon, I got a cease and desist letter delivered to my new office. It claimed PulseFlow was a direct copy of M&M's code. I couldn't help but laugh when I read it. Devin walked in, waving the letter. "Their move," he said calmly. "Now we make ours." We had expected M&M's legal strike, so AllureX's attorneys were ready. They fired back a 26-page document detailing every line of proof. Git logs, timestamps, personal laptop usage, third-party IP auditors who confirmed I owned the code. It was bulletproof. We even attached statements from 3 ex-M&M engineers, all verifying I'd done this work off hours. Brett and Jordan had no idea the extent of my preparation. Their letter looked amateur by comparison. One day later, Sasha called to tell me Jordan was losing it. He's shouting in the hallway saying you set them up. I almost felt sorry for him. But the real clincher came when Sasha shared a string of emails showing that Mason had been the one who demanded I do after-hours coding to keep costs down. That email alone proved M&M insisted I use my own resources. Their entire argument that I'd built PulseFlow on company time fell apart. I closed my laptop, feeling lighter. Then my phone chimed with a new text from Sasha. "I have deposition receipts too, ready to go on record." Carla Martinez, M&M's founder, was done playing games. She convened a board meeting that excluded Brett and Jordan again. The topic, crisis management. The board members read through the legal fiasco and the financial estimates of lost clients. One veteran board member even muttered, "Jenn Carter was the best asset we ever discarded." Whispers of a leadership shakeup turned into official talk. Carla pressed for an internal review of all nepotism hires. Another board member hammered the table, demanding accountability for the breakdown in processes that let Mason lead a critical team without qualifications. Meanwhile, Brett tried to force his way into the meeting, only to be told it was board only. I pictured his face reddening with frustration as security escorted him out of the hallway. Good riddance. Inside that room, the board began drafting an exit plan. Rumor said they wanted to remove Brett from his position and reassign Jordan to a less visible role. The plan was hush-hush, but inevitably, leaks happened. I got a tip from an ex-colleague. They're about to clean house. I typed a quick message to Devin at AllureX. M&M's leadership is on shaky ground. Time for phase 2? A week later, I got an email from M&M's HR with a subject line, "Re-potential opportunity." I almost ignored it, but curiosity won. The attached PDF was a buyout offer. They wanted me to come back as a high-level executive, chief technology officer no less. Their pitch, return to M&M, fix the system, and be rewarded for your expertise. I burst out laughing. They had publicly humiliated me, handed my role to a clueless friend of the CEO's son, and now they were begging me to save them. The nerve. Instead of replying directly, I forwarded it to my lawyer. Let her handle it. She fired back a formal response. Ms. Carter is prepared to discuss licensing her independently developed code to M&M. However, any potential collaboration requires clear financial terms. We added a staggering figure, $6.2 million up front, plus ongoing royalties. It was steep, intentionally so. I imagined their reaction. They'd have to admit they needed me. They'd have to pay me for my work. No more exploitation, no more belittling. Part of me felt almost merciful, but I remembered how they cast me aside. My phone buzzed with an unknown number. "We need to talk," a shaky voice said. It was Jordan. Word spread fast that the East Coast client, one of Eminem's biggest, had fully moved to Allure X. They weren't just talking about a pilot program, they were signing a long-term agreement. Then a few more clients followed, convinced by PulseFlow's demo and my proven track record. New headlines popped up in trade magazines: mass defection to PulseFlow, Allure X gains ground, and Eminem scrambles to recover. The meltdown was happening in real time, right out in the open. For me, it was strange to see the giant that once towered over me start collapsing under its own weight. At Allure X, we celebrated each new contract with cautious optimism. We knew the wave could grow even bigger. We also knew Eminem might strike back. But for now, morale was high. My new team thrived on open communication and mutual respect, everything that had been missing in my old job. By the time we closed the fourth deal, the entire office erupted in cheers. Devin organized a spontaneous lunch party, and as I walked in, the whole room stood and clapped. I felt tears sting my eyes. For the first time, my work was celebrated without any agendas or backstabbing. My phone chimed with an email alert. Interview request, Tech Today podcast. It was time to speak publicly. A week later, I sat in a high-rise studio overlooking the city, prepping for a major logistics innovation podcast interview. My palms were sweaty. I knew thousands of professionals would hear my story. The host, a well-respected industry journalist, looked thrilled to have me. "Welcome, Jenn Carter," she said, voice echoing through my headphones. "You've been called the hidden force behind Eminem's biggest successes. Now you're leading at Allure X. How does that feel?" I glanced at the sound engineer, then stared into the mic. "It feels surreal," I said quietly, gathering courage. Then I explained how undervalued talent often gets pushed out for flashy insider hires. How I'd built the system that saved Eminem millions only to be discarded for a nepotism project. I didn't mention Brett or Jordan by name, but anyone following the news knew exactly who I meant. The host pressed me for details. "Did you see this coming?" I answered honestly, "I did, but I stayed because I believed in the work." Then I told listeners how important it is to document your contributions and protect your intellectual property. After the interview aired, my phone lit up with a call from Brett. I stared at the screen and blocked him. A few days later, a massive scandal broke at Eminem. An internal email was leaked, showing that Mason had attempted to rewrite chunks of code he barely understood, inadvertently leaving a huge security hole in the freight vendor database. Suddenly, sensitive data from multiple vendors was exposed. TechCrunch ran a headline, "Eminem's security breach linked to incompetent code edits." I read the article with a pit in my stomach. This was bigger than just losing clients. This was a privacy disaster that could spark legal battles. Sasha messaged me in shock. "People are panicking. Vendors might sue. Brett is losing his mind." A part of me felt sorrow for the decent employees still stuck there, watching their careers go up in flames. But another part remembered how nobody stood up for me in that meeting. They let me get humiliated, and now they're paying for it. It was a harsh reality, but it was also a lesson for everyone who let nepotism run wild. Late that evening, Eminem's top lawyer reached out, her tone humble. "We need your help," she said softly over the phone. "Please." I sat across from Eminem's legal counsel at a glossy conference table in Allure X's headquarters. My lawyer and Devin flanked me, both looking confident. The tension in the room felt thick enough to slice. Eminem was finally ready to negotiate licensing terms. No more empty threats, no more bogus claims. They agreed to the $6.2 million upfront fee, plus the royalties. But there was one unexpected twist, a formal, public apology acknowledging I was the original creator of the technology. Their legal counsel squirmed, flipping through papers before grudgingly nodding. "We'll release an official statement," she said, her voice tight. When they slid the final draft across the table, I scanned the language. The words, "Acknowledge Miss Carter's independent development," made my heart skip a beat. All that time being told I was replaceable or outdated, and now here they were, validating me. We signed the contract under the watchful eyes of notaries. Afterward, the Eminem reps left in a hurry, avoiding eye contact. I sat in my chair for a moment, letting the reality sink in. I'd stood my ground. I'd won. Later that night, I sipped coffee on my balcony, reading Eminem's official press release. It was all there. My name, my work. Finally, within 1 week of the public apology, everything at Eminem shifted. Brett West was quietly relieved of his duties, though the press release spun it as a voluntary exit. Jordan, my old manager, announced his retirement, likely forced by the board. Mason deactivated his LinkedIn and deleted his Twitter, presumably to hide from the storm of negative commentary. Carla Martinez, the founder, also stepped back, citing health reasons. Some speculated stress had gotten to her. Others believed she couldn't face the aftermath of letting nepotism destroy her company's reputation. Sasha sent me a shaky cell phone video of Jordan's final walkout. He dropped his keycard into the security tray with a metallic clink and left the building, shoulders slumped. A wave of relief washed over me. For years, I'd believed my only choice was to deal with that kind of leadership. Now it felt like justice had been served. All across the industry, heads were spinning at how fast M&M's leadership collapsed. But for me, the biggest victory wasn't their downfall. It was building something better at Allurex. Sasha texted, "Are you ready for your next chapter?" I smiled to myself. Yes, I truly was. Things at Allurex moved fast. My official title was Director of Intelligence Systems, but Devin also granted me significant equity in the company, something M&M never would have considered. More excitingly, he approved my idea for a mentorship fund. We called it the Phoenix Program, designed to help mid-career professionals pushed out by bias or internal politics. I wanted to ensure no one would feel as powerless as I once did. I started meeting with potential mentees, reviewing their experiences and goals. One day, a nervous woman named Marisol came in, clutching her portfolio. She'd been overlooked at her last company in favor of younger hires. Despite her vast experience, she felt invisible. I recognized that pain. With support from Allurex, Marisol launched a new method for analyzing shipping container data, one that cut overhead by 15%. She presented it in a small meeting, but the results were huge. My heart soared. This was the environment I'd always dreamed of, one where proven talent could thrive and contribute without sabotage or hidden agendas. Later that night, Marisol pitched an enhancement to PulseFlow that gave me goosebumps. "This changes everything," I whispered. A few months later, I found myself standing on a red carpet marked with big white letters, TEDx. I was about to give a talk titled, "They Called Me Redundant." I called it Chapter 1. My palms tingled with nerves, but the supportive crowd gave me courage. I spoke about my journey at M&M, about the smug smiles, the underhanded Slack chats, the humiliating layoff. But I also talked about redemption and building a bigger vision. I wanted people to see that sometimes the greatest push forward comes from being shoved aside. The video of my talk went live the next day, and within 48 hours it exploded online. Messages poured in. People who'd felt marginalized in their careers found hope in my story. One unexpected viewer was Emma, a longtime friend who used to work under Jordan before transferring out. She sent me a tearful voicemail saying, "Your TEDx talk hit me so hard. I'm applying to Allurex right now." I was stunned. Emma was brilliant, and we'd lost touch after she left M&M. The idea of reuniting in a healthy work environment filled me with excitement. An email from Emma arrived. "Interview scheduled. See you soon." Life truly came full circle. PulseFlow's adoption soared. We decided to release a major update, PulseFlow 2.0, featuring advanced predictive analytics that could anticipate route issues and weather delays with astonishing accuracy. What people didn't know was that I'd held back a crucial feature during my time at M&M. I knew it would be a game changer, and I wanted to launch it in the right environment. When we flipped the switch, clients immediately reported a 35% efficiency gain. Social media lit up with praise for Allurex. Even the logistics trade press said they'd never seen anything like it. One article read, "Jenn Carter's unstoppable algorithm continues to disrupt the industry." I got an email from a journalist requesting a comment. "Do you feel vindicated by M&M's downfall?" I took a deep breath and replied, "No, I feel free." Because that was the truth. My journey wasn't about vengeance, it was about moving forward. Moments before I left work, a reporter cornered me, camera rolling. "Last question. Any final thoughts on M&M?" My answer was simple. "I've said enough. Let's focus on what's next." A few weeks later, we hosted a rooftop party at Allurex's new office to celebrate our record-breaking quarter. The skyline twinkled around us, and laughter filled the air as we toasted our success. My old team members were there. Sasha, Marisol, Emma, and the rest, thriving in an environment that valued them. I scanned the crowd and felt a surge of pride. We had built this together, and nobody could take it away. The music pumped, the chatter buzzed with excitement, and for the first time in years, I felt absolute peace. Brett and Jordan, long gone from my life. Eminem, surviving in the shadow of their own mistakes. Would they recover? Maybe. But that wasn't my concern anymore. I raised my glass, catching Sasha's eye across the rooftop. She lifted hers in return. We didn't need words to share our gratitude for how far we'd come. This wasn't just payback or triumph, it was a new beginning. As everyone cheered, I remembered that humiliating conference room scene where they publicly fired me. They thought they'd burned my bridge, leaving me stranded. But all along, I'd used those ashes to spark something better.